this time like to invite Katharina to give her presentation. Welcome, Katharina.
Hello, everybody. I also share my screen. So can you see it?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay. Yes, thank you for the invitation and thank you for having me here for this interesting conferences. And as thank you, Antonia, for this great information. So it's a perfect link and I can continue because yes, my topic is promoting gender just energy communities. So in Germany and also cross border. And so that's a concept what Antonia explained. So energy communities where people come together on the ground in the remote areas, and they join a community. They produce, they plan, they consume energy power plants. They develop mini grids, for example, and that can be the base for a new energy world, for a decentralized, democratic, renewable energy world where all people have a say and are not only consumers of energy. And that's a concept where we as WECF are working on a lot. So we are an international NGO organization working in the fields of energy, climate justice, water and sanitation, and also health and chemicals. And our cross-cutting, very important issue is gender equality. So to start from the very beginning for projects, for example, to implement them in a gender equal and gender transformative way. So to change also the power systems. And also to do to strive for a gender just energy and climate policy. That is how we work, and we think that we have a lot of gender dimension in the energy, and so thank you, Antonia, for focusing also on the part of participation of women in the energy world, but it's also very manifold because we see a lot of interlinkages between energy and gender. So, and for one point, for example, is the reproductive work. So women, we know, they work more hours than men in the household for childcare, for caring for elderly people, and mostly not paid. So much more unpaid hours than men, for example, meaning they need more energy for the household. They need more energy for the work they are doing in the house. But we also know that they don't take the decision for the devices mostly, for the more investive devices in the household. So here we have one important energy dimension. The second is the productive work. So the workforce great explained by Antonia. So we have not an equal representation of women in the workforce, meaning that there can be different working conditions, there can be different perspectives. So it's about 25% in the part of renewable energy of women overall in the part of renewable energy. And renewable energy is a great perspective for the future. So it can also mean that women take less part in the perspective of the renewable energy sector. And also, for example, of the equal pay, we also see the gender pay gap in the energy sector following here with the pension pay gap. So it's a very important dimension. The third one is decision-making, control. So that's policy, it's in the utility company, in the research, at the climate conferences, at the energy politicians. So there is less access of women for this level. In Germany, for example, we had the coal commission, a group talking about how and when will Germany phase out of the coal power plants, and it was mostly represented by men. It's also the age was not perfect, older than 50 years. So maybe that's a question if they represent the whole society to decide a very important energy plan and strategy of Germany, for example. Here it's very important to have gender equality. Another point is public services infrastructure. Do we all have the same access to energy? Very good example is, for example, in the mobility, a lot of money, at least in Germany and a lot of countries, is dedicated to build streets. We all know that women use more the public transport, so men have more profit out of that. The second part is the public transport designed in a way that women, for example, bringing kids to school, to kindergarten, caring for elderly people for short trips, do we have a good ticket system? And we all also see that the public transport and the design of that is not overall gender just. We have the dimension of body and health, so comfort sensitivity. So we have a different well-being feeling of room temperatures, for example, and one dimension is androcentrism, so that we are overall in a male-dominated world, and we see it also in the energy and climate policy, and it's more or less a norm. And when we are talking about gender justice, so we have to justify why do we need it, and that's really a very crucial point that we need. Yes, it's not a deviation to talk about gender justice, so it should be the normal situation. So here, a lot of interlinkages and reasons of the gender dimensions. Why do we need a gender just energy policy? Why should we plan all the energy activities in a gender just way? And how we go forward as WCF is for our approach with energy communities you see here. So it's a normal project cycles and process, but it's nothing spectacular and skyrocketing, but what we are doing is to start from the very beginning with gender analysis, for example, with needs assessment, to see what is the needs, the interest of all the people, of women, of men, of all gender, of all age, and then to plan the activities, to mobilize the people, to do capacity buildings, or to do a particular women's empowerment, and to organize, for example, the trainings that women can take part. So for our projects in Africa and Ethiopia and Uganda, it means to care for a safe transport, that women are sure to have a safe transport to come to the training, to go back from the training, for example. This is a very crucial point. And so we are going along, so the whole project cycle and working with local partners, empowering the local partners, also with gender expertise. That's our very our gender just approach for all the energy community projects. And how do we include gender in all the project activities? So here we apply various gender instruments. So it's like a toolkit. So we don't have like a checklist and not one size fits for all, depending on the results of the gender analysis. For example, it's very important to have a gender just communication. It's in the energy sector really very important because we still have a pretty male-dominated communication and advertisement. So it's so we really need to think actively how to make the communication more inclusive, more intersectional, more gender just in the language, in the pictures. So here it's a very low threshold, and we can achieve a lot. What we see, for example, in Germany, many energy communities, they also shift a bit and think, how can we address younger people, more women, people with migration background, etc. And that's always a matter of communication. I don't go through all the instruments. I would also like to highlight the capacity building for the partners. So we work with partners in Europe, in Germany, or for example in Africa, and also to transfer gender knowledge to the partners is a very important first point to implement the project and to empower the partners. And in a second step, for example, to empower the beneficiaries, so women, the men, the households, for example, to have a better and affordable access to energy. So that's here our toolkit, and I also have two examples what we did, for example, in Georgia, in the Caucasus, where we developed with our local partners gender just energy cooperatives. And the business model of the energy cooperatives is producing, selling, installing, and providing service and maintenance of solar water heaters. And the gender just approach is that we are empowered. So we did needs assessment. Who needs which energy? Who has which interests? What can people afford? Can women afford to install or to invest in a solar water heater with a price of 500 euro, for example? And so here we saw that they can't afford, and it's more difficult for women because they do not get loans from a bank, and if yes, they have to pay more interest, a higher interest rate. And so we developed with a local partner a gender just funding model with banks, and to that women have really also access to funding possibility to invest in the solar water heaters. In the solar water heaters, they allow them to use it for warm water in the household and replace firewood. So they have a better indoor air, and it's also a matter of climate protection because the deforestation is reduced. So that's a very rough explanation of the gender just cooperatives. We do also a lot of capacity building. We included international investors, and also the international investors, they agreed to the gender policy of the cooperatives, and overall it's a very nice model which can be upscaled easily. A second example, what we did with gender just communities in Uganda. So here working with different energy technologies like photovoltaic solar pump, the production of briquettes as replacement also for firewood and biogas. And what we did here is to work always on two levels, to work on a community level, mostly with agricultural cooperatives, which have a high need for electricity and energy, and also on the household level. So to empower the members of cooperatives and the community itself to develop business models. So we saw on community levels that very successful entrepreneurships have been developed, for example, the production of briquettes, so the investment in the briquetting equipment, the production of equipment, and so the people, so women, they can use the briquettes for their household purposes, or also they can sell it and they can make a small business model out of it. So it was always also the ongoing empowerment. And what we saw here as a success factor is the trainings for women's energy ambassadors. So to make women, girls aware about renewable energy, about how technologies work. So it's not to go too deep, to show what is the advantage, to show what can be done on a community level. So how to strengthen communities, how to make the communities resilient, how to keep the knowledge in the community. And that was really very important. And they spread the idea of renewable energy like an ambassador system. And we do a lot of policy work. So for example, at the climate conferences since Paris 2015, we do every year Gender Just Climate Solution Award. So we invite internationally organizations to apply for the award and to show what can be done to save the climate with mitigation and adaptation activities with a gender just approach. And the award ceremony is normally within the climate conference, what you see here in the middle of the slide. We developed like educational posters, like Let Women Grab in the Toolbox you find on the homepage. And we did recently publish a publication in German, Women Energy Transition, Frauen Energiewende. And here we highlighted and focused on the situation in Germany and also on the situation of energy communities and energy cooperatives in Germany, because what Antonia showed is that the mostly the cooperative, they have such a high potential to be gender just and to be gender sensitive with a democratic issue, with empowering, with everybody can join, not only focus on maximizing the dividend, for example, and really to show how this potential can be used to become more gender just, gender transformative and inclusive, and to use it for to speed up with the important energy transition. So it means that why gender just energy communities speed up the energy transition is because they have the potential to reduce the barriers women are facing with, the structural, financial and personal barriers. And we use the complete transformational potential we have because we have more actors, so we have more expertise, we have more engagement, and overall we have more power for the energy transition, it meaning more participation and social acceptance. And we also see that all over the world, energy communities, they act mostly on a local level where women have a say, so they are very visible change agents. And overall, we know that gender just energy projects and policy are more effective and have a wider scope. So we see in the studies. It means going along with a gender just approach, we have the potential to make the bottom-up energy revolution happen. So thank you very much for your attention, and I'm happy to answer any questions later on. Back to you, Davina. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Katharina, for yet another engaging presentation. It was really interesting to see your slide on gender instruments, and it just shows how many or how vast the approaches are to tackling gender equality in the sector. So thank you very much.